Beach House for Rent is Mary Alice Monroe's 21st book as a best-selling author. In this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups, I sit down with Mary Alice one-on-one. Well, Mary Alice.
Quintin.
It is so good to see you.
It's always a pleasure.
Likewise. Gosh, it's been...
I know I have a book come out when Quintin comes to
Hey, you're very important in this town and really around the world.
Thank you.
And I want to take it to the obvious. Obviously, we have here the Beach House for Rent.
Yes, my new baby. And it is like giving birth.
Wow.
You know, you work for months and months and months and you're waiting for the delivery, and when it comes, like today is the actual delivery day. This is just born today. You're proud and you want to give it the best send-off you can. You know, each time, no matter how many books you've written.
You're right about that. So, you have written many books.
Yes, I think this is 21. So I guess someone said to me, you know, I guess that makes me legal now. After 21.
Right. And I was thinking, what is the biggest difference between the first book and the 21st book in your mind?
Oh, you know, I don't think there's a huge difference. Each book you send out, it's fresh and new. It's like if you have one child or five.
Right.
Each child, each book is a unique story,
Right.
a unique message I'm trying to get across. And as you know, my books were always set against some species.
Right.
And then for Beach House for Rent, it's our shorebirds and our pelicans. And I try to get that message out, but it's also a story about the people. And this is a unique series because with Beach House for Rent, it harkens back to the Beach House,
Right.
which was my first New York Times hit. And it was when I first moved here and set against the Atlantic loggerheads, which I still love very much. But I wanted, that book was huge for me because it was when I decided to try and make my readers aware of what's going on with sea turtles through the power of story, not through preaching or anything like that. And so with this series, and this series only, The Beach House, every 5 or so years, 3 years, I would create another story using the same family. The Rutledge, Kara Rutledge, Lovey Rutledge.
Right.
So the readers can follow years with this family. With Beach House for Rent, it's 10 years after the first one. 10 years.
10 years.
But that's what makes it a standalone novel.
Right.
You don't have to have read all the others
Right.
because it's 10 years later and Kara's hitting 50. But it is part of this long story here in Charleston.
Absolutely. And speaking of which, you talk about, obviously, the fragility of migrating shorebirds
Yes.
and the brown pelican species. Tell me this. What is it we don't know about that particular issue?
I'll surprise you, 70% of the population of our shorebirds has dropped since the 1970s nationwide. And that's from the Audubon Society, and especially those species that migrate to really long distances. I think a lot of people, when they think of shorebirds, they just think of birds at the shore. And they really, other than the pelican and the gulls, which really are not shorebirds, they can't really, what are the difference? But if you go to my beach, I live on Isle Palms, Sullivan's Island, if you go to, and it's our beach, we all share it with the birds, you'll see fewer birds out there. And I'm hoping that if the people love this book and they meet Kara and Heather, but they're going to close the book and I hope they think, I'm not going to let my dog chase the birds on the beach because these birds migrate thousands of miles, 20,000 miles round trip for some of them, like the red knots. And that takes a heavy toll on them. They need to gorge on the food that they're eating when they're scavenging in the sand and mud. And when a dog comes rushing through, it's like you're eating dinner in a food court and the fire alarm goes off. So I just hope it makes people aware, and I have found that when people are aware, they care.
You're right about that. And the Moochie News actually wrote an article about your particular book, and it says this quote, "In Beach House for Rent, 2 women from different generations are bound together by a beloved beach house. Carol Rutledge, 50, rents her house on the Isle of Palms. They have a Hawaii, 26, for the summer. Heather's anxiety keeps her indoors with her caged canaries until the shorebirds and the man who rescues them lure her out to the beach. As the summer progresses and Heather's heart opens, Kara's life reels with sudden tragedy. When their worlds shift, the 2 different women come together to discover their common bonds and unique strengths." What is your definition of a beach house after publishing this book?
In this, my definition is it's a sanctuary. It's a place where people gather, whether if it's your personal home like it is for the Rutledges,
Right.
it holds your memories. It's not a fancy mansion, it's a cottage.
Right.
And it's where she grew up, and her family has all their, only the good memories, we like to say. For a lot of people, they come to the beach house with a group of girls, or their families for a wedding or a
Right.
special occasion,
Right.
and they rent it. Again, memories are created, and people go to the water, I think, to feel renewed and refreshed. We have evidence now with science research to show that you do contribute to your well-being if you go to the water, whether it's an ocean
Right.
or a lake or a river. And these two women from different generations, I wanted to show how women have always come together to help each other. And Kara rents this particular house, which is her sanctuary. She needs the money.
Right.
And she rents it to a young girl who has anxiety disorder. And I think that's what I wanted to draw on, is that so many of us are afraid to go outdoors, and we have that negative voice in our head. You can't do that. You're not good enough. They'll figure you out. You're just weak. All these negative voices in our heads that hold us back and keep us boxed in, whether in a house or in our mind. And by going outdoors, by living with Kara, with women supporting women, or families supporting family members, you gain the strength to silence those negative voices and to find the strength to be like those shorebirds and fly off to follow your heart's destiny.
Yeah. Write the headline for me. Mary Alice Monroe will do what next?
We'll do. Mary Alice Monroe is beginning a 30-city tour, a book tour. I'm going to visit 30 different places, 11 different states,
Yes.
coast to coast. And I'm going from here to along the Jersey Shore, the Midwest, of course, all over the South, and then I'm going to California. So Mary Alice is going to be traveling next,
Wow.
and then she's going to go home, rest, and begin her next book.
You talk about the next book. Obviously, you've written 21 books. What is it like to be Mary Alice Monroe these days?
Mary Alice Monroe is grateful. I have a lot of gratitude for being in this position where
Right.
my stories are being read.
Right.
Every author wants her books to be read. I'm grateful that I'm making a difference on the beaches,
Right.
those turtles and shorebirds and monarch butterflies, that I'm bringing my readers an awareness and they're responding. So I think that's a life's mission that's been carved out for me. And I'm grateful to be at a time in my life when my family is doing well. You never take that for granted.
Granted.
It's always your number one.
Right.
And that I have fans who care.
Yes, they do.
So I'm full of gratitude.
That is so good to hear. That's awesome.
Yes.
Well, Mary Alice Monroe, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this.
Thank you, Quintin. It's
Thank
always
you.
a pleasure.
Likewise.
You ask great questions.
Oh, thank you. I do my best. Thank you.
Until next time.
Yes, ma'am. I'll be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.